Someone who knows what they're doing.
Somebody who knows what they're doing. Okay?
Cares about others.
Care about others.
Courage to make decisions.
Courage to make decisions.
Someone who will work with their comrades instead of watching them work.
Work with them rather than watch them. Someone who has confidence in what they do. Anybody else?
Someone who is loving, but at the same time stern in their work.
Loving yet sometimes what?
Stern in their work.
Stern. Okay. Loving yet sometimes stern. Any others? How many of you at some point in your life you have been under good leadership? Okay. How many of you at times in your life you have suffered under bad leadership? Okay. So we could say that bad leadership is just kind of the opposite of good leadership, right? And yet there are so many opportunities that we have to be leaders, and also many opportunities, as you know, to serve leaders and to be under leaders. And Peter has been talking about how to live for Christ and live for Jesus, even in the hard stuff. And last week was, I think it was last week, talking about where he says, don't be surprised when you have a hard time or when life is made hard for you for living for Jesus. And this is kind of prepping the close of this letter that he's writing, where he's going, look, if you're going to live for Jesus, it means living for Jesus. It means not just going along with what culture is always saying or doing what culture is going to make easy on you. You guys are you with me where you're like, I would much rather have culture go easy on me than culture make it hard for me, right? I'm not the only one who feels that way. And so I will tend to want to just say like, okay, what is going to get me the right kind of attention? And then in other situations, what's going to make it so that I don't get any attention at all? And what Peter has been saying is, look, if you're going to live for Jesus, you're going to get attention. Now, don't get the wrong kind of attention. You know, your parents ever say that to you? It's like, this is the wrong kind of attention. Don't get this kind of attention. But we don't want to get attention for the bad stuff that we do and for living in bad ways. But sometimes we don't want the attention for living the right way either. We don't want the attention that living for someone for an agenda other than what the world says the agenda should be. Oh gosh, they're going to point me out. It's going to make me, I might look dumb. People are going to tease me. And Peter goes, if you're living for Jesus, don't be surprised when things get hot. Don't be surprised when stuff gets tense. Not because you're being a jerk, not because you're thumping somebody over the head with a Bible, but because you're living for Jesus. And the world hates that because the world wants to be able to live however it wants to live. And Peter is going, look, things are going to get difficult, but now he's wrapping up this letter. But before he wraps this letter up, he wants to talk to leaders. And so he's specifically addressing a certain group of people. But this morning, what I want us to look at is, even though Peter is addressing specifically elders in the church, all right? So the stuff he's saying is specifically to them. I want for us to look at this because even though no one in this room right now, ladies, could you stop talking? Thanks. Even though right now, none of you are in a place of being elders in the church. Okay, you're not there. Hopefully, what we can look at here in Peter's letter of what an elder is called to, what a leader in the church is called to, is something that we would be open to allowing God to do in our life. Going, God, make me that kind of person. God, I want to invite you to make me that kind of leader with those kinds of qualities. With those things that you say, God, are important, I want those in my life. And also as we look at this and we see what godly leadership is supposed to be, that we would be able to discern and know what kind of leadership we should really be following. Because any of you ever followed somebody, you did something that somebody said, and they ended up being a bad leader and leading you into a bad situation? And sometimes that's totally the leader's fault. They've deceived us, and it's not something that you could have done anything about. You were supposed to follow them or whatever. But sometimes I know that I have walked into situations following somebody, trying to be like somebody, listening to what somebody said is the cool thing or the right thing or whatever. And I end up going, whoa, why in the world did I ever follow you? And so today, this is what I want us to take out of this passage. It is specifically to a group of people, to elders in the church, to leaders in the church. But that doesn't mean that, okay, well, I'll worry about that once I'm a leader, once I'm an elder. This is something we need to look and go, God, I want to be open to you making me like this. God, help me to lead this way. If this is what you say the leaders of the church are supposed to be, well, it probably should apply to my life as well. As I lead friendships, as I lead teams, as I lead groups, as I live in my family. So, an elder is an overseer. It's the spiritual overseer of a church. It's the people that are responsible for guiding the vision of the church. So they should be in prayer for the ministry. Here at LBF, we have a group of elders, okay, and they are praying for every ministry here at the church. They're praying for you guys. In fact, I think it was just last Saturday, they got together and they spent like 6 hours of Saturday praying for you. Listening for God's leading. Trusting that this can't be about what they think is the best idea, what they think they should do, or going with, oh, we've been doing this for a while now, we know what we're doing, but seeking God and going, God, what do you want to say to us? And so the elders are the spiritual overseers of a church. And Peter here is talking to the elders. He goes, and now a word to you elders. So you're getting kind of a glimpse into a private part of the message. This wasn't something that was like, okay, everybody, this was for these guys. And now a word for you who are elders in the churches. I too am an elder and a witness to the suffering of Christ. So Peter's like giving himself some credibility. You know, it sort of helps when you know that somebody knows what they're talking about. Somebody said that, like, hey, a good leader is somebody who knows what they're doing, right? So Peter goes, look, I'm an elder. I was with Jesus. I saw what happened. And I too will share in the glory when he is revealed to the whole world. As a fellow elder, I appeal to you. So here's what he's calling leaders to be. Care for the flock that God has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not what? Grudgingly. Somebody describe grudgingly to me.
When someone does something that you don't like and you hold up against them for a while.
Okay, that's holding a grudge. Okay, so you hold it against them. Okay, what is to do something grudgingly? Okay, Nathan, I'm calling on you. Respond grudgingly.
Basically, it means that you're doing it, you do it, but you don't want to do it.
Nice, very good. So exactly what he is. Like, okay, fine. Care for the flock that God's entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly. Not for what you'll get out of it, but because you're eager to serve God. Don't lord it over them. Don't lord it over the people assigned to your care, but lead them by your own good example. Yes, that's where I stopped. Okay. And when the great shepherd appears, you will receive a crown of never-ending glory and honor. Okay, so this is what's expected of leaders. Watch over people willingly, not grudgingly. Serve God, not for what you'll get out of it. So don't worry about what you're going to get out of it. And be an example, and you can't lord it over people. Looking at that, does that make you want to be a leader? Honestly, I mean, some you may be like, yeah, that's cool. Is any of that like, oh gosh, no thanks? Is any part of that like, you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound that fun to me? It does to me. You know, that whole, well, like be an example. You ever find being a good example a pain? I don't want to be a good example. I want to be able to have an attitude. I want to be able to do something stupid. I want to be able to just do what I want to do and not have to worry about what anybody else is thinking or what anybody else is doing. I don't want to be a good example. Anybody? This is what we're called to in leadership. But we've got to decide, okay, is this something that I'm willing to do? Because leadership is an important thing wherever you're at. In fact, God says that leaders are going to be judged more harshly. Teachers, okay, which is what leaders are doing. Teachers, you're going to be judged on what you taught people and how you led them. What your words, how you led them, the things that you told them to do or not do, the places that you took them, your example, you're going to be judged on that. Now, that alone could make you go, oh, well then, no, never mind. And for some people, they do. For some people, because they don't want to be held to this standard, they let go of or ignore or shut down the ways that God has gifted them. Maybe some of you in this room, God has gifted you with something. Maybe it's to be on the welcome team. Oh, but being on the welcome, there's expectations with the welcome team. Oh no, that's okay. It's easier for me to just kind of do my own thing. Some of you, you're incredibly talented musically, but it's a lot safer to sit and practice all the scales and everything in your room where nobody can hear you than to actually step out and be willing to lead. Leadership is a powerful thing. It's so powerful that God goes, you're going to be judged by the way you lead. So when we put this up here, watch over people willingly, not grudgingly, that's not a suggestion. That's the way that that's what God's going to look at and go, what kind of leader were you? Oh, you were the kind of leader that you did it because you were forced to. You did it because you had to. You did it because it's the religious thing to do. But you didn't do it because you were following my heart. But leading is a huge thing. So these are three things that Peter points out. And there are definitely other things in Scripture that talk about leadership. But these are the things we're going to look at right now. So watch over people willingly, not grudgingly. How could that be difficult? Somebody help. How could it be difficult to do something willingly and not grudgingly?
Sometimes you just don't want to do it.
Amen? Sometimes you just don't want it. Right? What else, Haley?
Sometimes there's like sacrifice that comes with it.
I'm going to have to give up things? Yeah. That stinks. Yeah.
It's like babysitting, but like sometimes the kids aren't great.
Babysitting, and sometimes the kids aren't great. Great. And the next, hey, can you babysit? Yeah. What else? How could it be hard to not do things grudgingly?
If it's against your plan or where you thought you were going to be.
It's like, has that happened to you? Yeah. I think every one of us in some way, it's like, this is what I'm doing tonight. No, you're not. You're watching your sister. I'm going to watch her what? Yeah. Doing things grudgingly is so much easier sometimes than doing things willingly. Now, there are some things that are easy to do willingly. Peter, want to go to Disneyland with me? Yes, thank you. Now, why would it be so quick to say yes to going to Disneyland, but no to, hey, Peter? I'm trying to think of the worst possible thing. It's like, you want to eat a raw egg right out of the shell? It's healthy, but I'll do it grudgingly. Fine, if you make me. Okay, so watch over people willingly, but not grudgingly. Because And many of the times, the reasons that this is hard to do is because it means we're going to have to do something that we hadn't planned on doing, that we don't want to do, that's uncomfortable for us, that we have to give something up for. And so we look at that and we go, but me. Honestly, that's what we're doing. We're going, that's what brings out doing something grudgingly is, and think about this the next time that happens. Hey, I need you to will you watch your sister tonight while your mom and I go out to dinner? Think about what the initial, why? What is that? And most of the time you'll find it comes from, but this means I don't get to do what I want to do. This means I don't get to be the way that I want to be. And Philippians, in Paul's letter to the Philippians, he says it this way: don't be selfish. Don't try and impress people. Be humble, thinking about others as better than yourself. Don't look out for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. How do you consider the opportunities that are put before you? How are you looking at the things that people are asking of you? How do you view the stuff that people expect you to do? And there it is completely normal and natural to go, I don't want to. Okay, but if we look at this and if I have a responsibility, it's like, okay, am I being selfish? Yeah, I am. Because I want what I want. And I think you're the same way. Don't try and impress others. Okay, there are all sorts of opportunities for that. Be humble, thinking about others as better than yourself. Don't look out for your own interests, but take interest in others as well. Let's take the babysitting thing, for example. Watching your little brother, your little sister, whatever. In that moment, when all you were planning on doing was going back to your room and vegging on Netflix. In that moment when all you wanted to do, where right before they asked you to babysit, a friend called or texts you and goes, hey, you want to go hang out at Victoria Gardens? And then you think, suddenly that person, that human being, that family member, that the person that's as close to you as anybody's going to get, ceases to become human. Now they become a project. Now they become this thing that is imposing on what I want and what I was planning on doing. Now, totally normal. I mean, disappointment is real and frustration is real and all those things. But how easily we slide into, man, I'm not willing to do this. I will do this because you're forcing me to, which impacts the way that we view people, which impacts the way that we treat people, because let's be honest, once your parents leave and you are grudgingly watching them, they don't get the best care, do they? Right? No, Jeff, they do not. Our attitude, the way that we view doing things is going to impact our behavior. And that behavior speaks to our leadership. So now, even if it is just with your brother or sister, that you're supposed to be babysitting, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Now, the way that you treat them, the way that you lead them, is now an example to them of leadership. And they are now looking at you, or they'll look at the next person, and they'll look at attitude, and they'll learn attitudes from you. And now they see, oh, okay, so if I am asked to do something and I don't want to, I can do it grudgingly. I can do it with this attitude of like, all right, mom and dad are gone. Get into your room, twerp. You know, and I can do that. That's the way to be a leader. See, a lot of times we don't understand the significance of our leadership opportunities. It's just my younger brother or sister. It's just a friend from school. It was just a group project. And we minimize it, and we fail to see the opportunity for leadership that when we do things grudgingly, okay, fine, I'll do it because I'm forced to, but I hate it. It's going to come out in your leadership, and it's going to shape who you are. Leaders are called to live above reproach. Reproach as a word means that nobody would be able to come back at you and accuse you of doing something wrong or doing something not the best way. Let's stick with this little brother, little sister thing. Or if you've got an older brother, maybe you're the little brother or little sister and you can look at your older brother and sister. Are you above reproach? When your parents return, is there anything that could be said against you about the way that things were done while they were gone? That's living above reproach. And leaders are supposed to be above reproach. All leaders are supposed to be above reproach. So maybe you have had the opportunity for leadership in some way and it hasn't gone well and you've had people come back at you. Maybe it's because it was not done above reproach. Maybe there are things that people were able to say. But leading, this means that sometimes, Haley's absolutely right. Sometimes it means sacrificing things that you shouldn't have to sacrifice. And that's where the grudgingly comes in. It's like, I shouldn't have to give this up. I shouldn't have to give up my friends. I shouldn't have to give up watching TV. I shouldn't have to give up what I selfishly want for myself. I shouldn't have to give it up. And you know what I say to that? You're right. You shouldn't have to give it up. Will you? Not because I've forced you. Not because I've screamed at you. Not because I've guilted you into it. Are you willing to do it? See, it doesn't say watch over people. It doesn't say don't watch over people grudgingly. Moving on. It says watch over people what? Willingly. Care about people. Willingly. Not because you have to. Not because somebody's watching. Not because, it's the religious thing to do if it's a religious situation. Whatever. Watch over people willingly, not grudgingly. Second thing leaders are called to serve God, not for what you'll get out of it. Okay, serve God, not because of what you're going to... Now, what are some things that you do because of what you'll get for it?
Babysitting.
School. What do you get out of schoolwork? You get grades, right? You get grades.
Knowledge.
Okay, you get knowledge. Okay, you'll eventually get a job. Yeah, what are some other things that, as you go through your life, that you would do for what you get out of it? Conditioning. Okay, some sacrifices made there, right?
Babysitting because you get money.
A job. Yeah, you're going to get a paycheck. Okay, all right, I'll work. Yeah, do you do that grudgingly? Do you think that if you go to work grudgingly, do you think that's going to come out in your performance? Absolutely, I guarantee it. 100%. Walking. What do you get out of it? You get to go somewhere. Okay.
Do your chores so that you can play video games in your spare time.
Okay, do your chores so that you can do what you want to do later. Go to amusement parks. Why? Because you get fun. Now, serve. Serve God. What do you get out of it? Don't worry about it. Now, think, what if I asked you, so I go, hey, Olson, I need you to come over to my house this afternoon. What would be a reasonable question for him to ask? Well, because I want you to, I want you to, and I'm asking you to. What would be an additional thing he could ask?
Why?
But no, why? Well, why? Okay. Eventually, at some point, once the whys are done, okay, the reason he's asking why is he asking why?
He wants to know why.
He wants to know, is it going to be worth it? What am I going to get out of it? When we say why, it's what am I going to get out of it? So here it says, serve God, not for what you're going to get out of it. God says, look, I'm calling you to be a leader. I'm calling you to serve people. And we go, why? And God goes, don't worry about it. Don't do this for what you're going to get. Don't do this because it'll be worth it to you, you think. Because what happens if God reveals all the why. It's like, all right, Caleb, I'm calling you to do this. Why? Because when you're 36, you're going to have an opportunity in a grocery store to help a woman choose a head of lettuce. Now, at that point, Caleb could very reasonably to all of us go, say, I'm 18. When I'm 36, helping a lady choose a head of lettuce. God? No. Why? Because it doesn't seem worth it to me. Forget the fact that when he's 36 years old, he's in the grocery store and a woman comes up to him and she's trying to load a head of lettuce into a bag and she can't get it open and she's trying really hard. And as Caleb walks up to her, he goes, hey, let me help you with that. He opens the bag, she puts it in, and she turns to him and he sees tears streaming down her face because her husband just died and she's just trying to get some lettuce to make a salad so that she can go home and have something for the kids to eat at home. Now, what looks to us like, hey, it's not worth it. Was that too deep? Did I go a little far on that one? What doesn't seem to us right now like it's worth it. What am I going to get for it? What am I going to get for it? God goes, look, I'm calling you to serve. I'm calling you to care for people, not grudgingly, but willingly. This is what I'm calling you to. And Jesus gives this huge example, this practical example to his disciples who definitely were sacrificing things, but were probably going, okay, so what's going to be in this for us? I mean, we're with Jesus and he's, we're going to somehow get recognized for this. Jesus is at dinner with them and he takes off his robe and he wraps a towel around himself and he goes to his disciples and he washes their feet. And they're like, whoa, what are you doing? No, Jesus, there's no reason for you to wash our feet. You're not going to, our feet stink. There's no big crowds. Nobody's applauding you. No, Jesus, we're not letting you wash our feet. There's nothing in it for you. Jesus goes, hold on. I'm giving you an example of how you are called to serve others. You guys in this room, leading people is about serving others. It's about serving God, doing what God has called you to, doing what God leads you to, not because you're going to get something out of it, but because he's called you to it. That this is what he wants for your life. And Jesus said this, now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. If we are willing to serve. And the last thing, be an example. And don't lord your leadership over the people. One of the most difficult parts of leadership is leading by example, isn't it? Have you ever had a leader who just stands back and barks out orders and says, hey, you go do this, you go do this. Yeah. It's like, yeah, every PE teacher. And I say that, I was a PE teacher. And it was but let me tell you this, just in a real practical way, and some of you, I'm sure you've experienced this with teachers or people in your life. There were the days where I'm like, all right, give me a lap, go. And they did it grudgingly. There was some why. I was like, don't worry about it, right? And they head off. And then there were the days where I'd go, all right, guys, let's go. And I would run, and they would run up with me. The really fast kids who were always trying to be first back, they didn't care if they were first back. I'm just jogging along and they're right next to me. Like, hey, Mr. Taylor. Hey, Mr. Taylor. Hey, that's good. Can we go a little faster? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to. There's some people back here. I'm going to hang back here. Okay, all right, we'll hang back here with you. And it was so much more of a group thing. They felt so much more included when I was part of that with them. Be an example. Don't lord your leadership over them. Are you open to that in your life? Because honestly, one of the most difficult parts of leadership is being an example. Because many times it feels like I've worked so hard to get to this leadership position, I shouldn't have to do that anymore. And leadership goes right out the window. Now you're a boss. But if we will serve others by being an example, Jesus said this, you know that the rulers, and this is the Matthew 20:25, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over the people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. You know you're being a good leader, according to this, or that you're following a good leader, if you see that they are less concerned with using their power and more concerned with serving you, or you serving other people. Going, you know what? I'm not worried about what I'm going to get out of it. I'm not going to worry about whether it's fair. I'm not going to be like, oh man, there are 9 other things I wish I could do, and so therefore I'm going to make everybody suffer. But instead, they're in a place of going, look, I'm right alongside you. You know, they're right with you. This is godly leadership. Luke 17, one day Jesus said to his disciples, there will always be the temptation to sin, but what sorrow awaits the person who does the tempting. It would be better to be thrown into the sea with a stone hung around your neck than to cause one of these little ones to fall into sin. That's graphic. Imagine that. You know, come here. Ties a big old rock around your neck and throws you off a boat. Here you go. Right? Our example is huge, and I talked about it earlier when it comes to babysitting your little brother or sister. Being an example is huge because people, if you're a leader, people will follow your example. What example are you setting with your attitude, with your actions, with your willingness to serve? You guys, all of these things are what leaders are called to. And so many people try so hard to be the biggest in the room, to be the loudest in the room, to be the funniest in the room, to be the most assertive, to have the biggest voice, to have the most confidence. And they're completely unwilling to be the example. They just want to be the boss. But we're called by God to be an example. What are you leading other people to? Because if it's not something where they should be following, they won't follow. And if your leadership says, oh, look, if I get to be the leader, then I get to do what I want to do, they won't follow. Because they'll recognize, oh, you're just leading to what you want to do. And you guys, it starts now. Peter's talking to the elders in the church. He's telling these people, look, don't use your authority. Don't use the fact that you've been appointed to this position of leadership to lord it over people and be like, you're going to do this and stop doing that and you don't get to be. He's saying, you better get in there and you better serve alongside these people. This is what I've called you to do. But you guys, it doesn't start when you become an elder. It starts now. It starts in your life now with babysitting your brother and sister. It starts in your life now on your team. It starts in your life now in your family. It starts in your life now with your friends. Because we're called to lead people willingly, not grudgingly. We're called to be an example. And when we fail to do that, we fail to be the leaders that God calls us to be. And for right now in your life, in the areas of leadership, okay, where you are called to be a follower, the writer of Hebrews says this, obey your spiritual leaders and do what they say. Their work is to watch over your souls, and they are accountable to who? To God. Hopefully they're taking that seriously. Give them reason to do this with joy and not with sorrow. So, part of leadership, okay, at times you are called to follow. What kind of follower are you? Are you willing to submit to leadership? Are you willing to let people speak into your life? Are you willing to take correction? Are you willing to take redirection? And many times the thing that hurts our leadership is we're so afraid that, oh my gosh, if I'm not leading, then nobody will respect me. Following many times leads to leading. And this is what God has called us to right now in your life. And I don't know what opportunities you have. I don't know what opportunities you've been overlooking because, oh, it's just my little brother. It's just this situation. I'm not a leader. I can't. God wants to use you right now. And God has given us this great picture. Peter in his letter gave us this great picture of what leadership really is. So start now in the opportunities that you have, caring for people not grudgingly, not because you're forced to, not always looking at, oh, what's in it for me and what's gonna, how's this gonna benefit me? And certainly not lording it over people, but how can you serve people? How can you come alongside people? And how can you lead them to Jesus? Because God wants to do it now. He's not waiting for you to grow up. He's not waiting for you to be an elder at a church. So Lord, I pray for every person here that in whatever ways that you are calling them to be leaders, God, to lead people in the way that you have called them to, God, to lead people to you. And God, I pray for those who are struggling because they're really tired of having to watch their little brother or sister, or they're really tired of not being appointed as the leader, or they're whatever the frustrations may be. And God, for those who are in leadership positions and yet they've been leading with the motives of what's in it for them and how can they make this most beneficial for them. God, I pray that you would guide all of us to lead the way that you've called us to, and that you would wake up our souls to respond to you when you call us into a leadership moment. God, even if it's just for that moment, help us to respond to you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, love you guys. Have a good week. Don't forget, if you want to sign up for the welcome team, the sign up is on the shop counter. So make sure you get signed up, and see you guys on Wednesday.